Yeah, so I've been working with this nonprofit in Durban, South Africa. It's called Ubuntu NPO. They're a nonprofit dedicated towards helping young girls, young schoolgirls in South Africa. And I've been working with the founder and CEO of that organization to address menstrual equity amongst South African girls. And so I came up with this idea to do a large hygiene drive, and they're serving 1,600 girls, and I just wanted to do something that was bigger than anything they had done. It's a young woman in her 20s who founded this, and I knew that I had the resources and the ability to help her out, and so I said, let's do a large hygiene drive that would cover everything. So we had a goal of collecting 10,000 menstrual pads, and we actually surpassed that goal and collected around, 11,600 pads, something like that, over the course of a few months. So we did a bunch of social media campaigns to be able to collect these pads. We did community forums, we hosted town halls, people donated like crazy, and we were able to surpass that goal. So
all right. And so why is it necessary to do this drive? Why?
Oh, yeah. A lot of people don't understand how the menstrual cycle affects women, and especially affects rural women in international communities that are obviously less fortunate than we are here in the United States. So being able to partner with organizations internationally and utilize the resources we have here in the States is just something that's passionate to me. And these are Black women, right? Young Black girls. And with me being a Black woman and understanding that my identity, it connects with the diaspora, it connects with other Black women across the globe, I knew that I had a responsibility with being so fortunate and being well connected and well networked, that I had the ability and the responsibility to do something about this. And so I felt that one of the starting points with addressing menstrual equity was to provide the supply of hygiene products. But I'm working with the nonprofit to address this issue legislatively and with their government. And so this is just the beginning. And I think it's important that people understand that the menstrual cycle is still heavily stigmatized. And it's even worse in other countries where there's poor education around the menstrual cycle, and there's not as much advocacy around women's rights. And I think that this is, being that it's a global issue, it's a responsibility that all of us women have to assure that menstrual equity is addressed globally.
So what are some of the hurdles to not just getting the word out, but to bringing some equity to this?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think that the borders is one of the hardest parts, not being educated on what truly is going on in other countries. I realized that a major failure of our education system is that we don't learn enough about the world and what other people are experiencing. And like I said, menstrual equity is a global problem. It's a global pandemic. Poor menstrual equity is a global pandemic, but we don't learn about these things. And so being that I can't be there in South Africa and to meet these girls and to hear their stories and to hear about their problems, I feel has been a major challenge. I feel that I've been able to connect with them, again, being that I identify as a global citizen, as a Black woman in the diaspora. I've been able to connect with them in this way. But again, there are language barriers, there are educational barriers, and then trying to get people to understand why this is an important need has been a barrier. Now, getting people to donate to the cause surprisingly hasn't been that difficult, because I think most women can resonate with what it's like to experience a menstrual cycle and can empathize with what it would be like to not be able to manage it with dignity. And so I don't think that supplying the products was a hurdle, but being able to get them there, being able to continue to educate myself on the uniqueness of the problem in the context of South Africa is one of the hurdles. So I'm constantly having to educate myself on their government structure, on their political structure, on their economic structure, and being that the political and economic dynamics are different over there. I mean, just trying to get the pads over there has been something that I've had to overcome. So, yeah.
All right. and so, how can people get involved? And there's another topic too that's related to this one that you're advocating for, and that is the women in prison.
Oh yeah.
Can you, before we let people know how they can be a part of this, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the first step in addressing any issue is to listen. I think that we would be more aware of some of the things that are going on in the lives of others if we took the time out to listen. We took the time out to get to know other people and hear their stories. Collecting stories, I think, is the best way to fully connect with another human being. Not what someone else says, not what you see on social media, not any of that, but to truly take the time to speak to someone, hear them out, and address their issues. Which is what I feel I've done with the incarcerated population. A couple of years ago, I had a simple conversation with previously incarcerated women, and through this conversation, they told me about the struggles of having to manage a menstrual cycle behind bars. And it's an issue that stuck with me ever since this conversation. But I had to admit that because I hadn't taken the time before then to sit and talk with this group of people, that I never thought about what it would be like to be behind bars and not have access to my menstrual products. And so I feel that that effort and this initiative has helped me open my eyes and given me the lens to be able to speak to people and see them past any stigma, any label, any type of identity that's outward, right? Like, you want people to name themselves and identify themselves, and the only way to do that is by talking with people and hearing their stories. And so once I realized that this was an issue, not just statewide, but nationally and internationally, I initiated this menstrual equity movement here in Ohio, where I'm trying to address the poor access and denial and withholding of menstrual products to those who are incarcerated. And I currently have worked with legislators to get a bill introduced that would create consistency across all corrections facilities and allow women to get their products. But it's also an anti-discrimination bill. And so the bill states that not only do women have to have access to their products, but they cannot be denied their products. You can't withhold them. And I think that that's an important part of this legislation, because it's not so much the issue of supply that we're dealing with. The products are there, they're on site, but there's nothing that says that these facilities have to provide them, that they can't deny them, and they can't withhold them for any discretionary reason. And that's what I wanted to address. I wanted to protect women holistically. I wanted this to be something that could sustain accessibility. And I think that's what keeps driving me, is knowing that there are people behind bars that aren't getting what they need on a daily basis, and how that is compounded with whatever other struggles and traumas that they're going through with being behind bars. But I'm very passionate about this initiative. I'm passionate about addressing menstrual equity, both here in Ohio, nationally and internationally. And I believe we're working on all fronts to assure that women and girls have access to their products.
Now, I've just got one other question before the last question, right? And I think this is one where it's a societal question. And that is, how difficult or how easy is it to talk about this topic, this subject?
Now, I will say, I think it's as difficult as you want it to be. If you're an open-minded individual, if you're a person who likes to meet other people and talk with other people, I think understanding other people's issues and being empathetic is a fairly easy thing to do. But if you are not the type of person that interacts with other people, especially people that look different than yourselves or have a different background, then it may be a little bit more challenging for you to understand. So my ask is that people work to become open-minded. I think it's human nature for us to want to stay in our comfort zone. My background is in behavioral neuroscience and understanding that the brain likes to be comfortable. It doesn't like to do things that are difficult. It doesn't like to be challenged. Those are not within our human nature. And so it has to be a conscious effort for you to make the decision to get to know people that are different than you, which is uncomfortable. You have to make the conscious decision to take yourself out of what's comfortable, what's normal, and get to know others. And if you're used to doing that, then I think that it's very easy for you to be able to see people and get to know them for who they truly are. But it is a practice. It is a conscious effort that you have to make to be able to do that.
All right. And so now that last question is, how can people get involved? Can you give some contact information, and maybe also with that, maybe like a website or a book or a movie that they can get more?
Sure. If you want to learn more about menstrual equity, there are a ton of different websites out there. You can, gosh, I don't even know them off the top of my head, but there's menstrualequityday.com, there's period.com, there's Aunt Flo. There's a ton of different websites. So I would always ask that people do their own research and try to understand the issue for themselves, and then talk to women. Understand that not all women's bodies are the same. Not all women menstruate the same and experience reproductive health the same. So we can't address this in a uniform type of way. We have to understand the different facets of what goes into managing a menstrual cycle in a healthy way. And we address those issues as such. So talking with people, talking with women about what they're going through, I think is one of the first steps. And then donating. Understand that there are schools, homeless shelters, those who are living in refugee camps. I'm speaking globally, right? So whatever sphere that you're working in, there's a woman potentially who doesn't have access. And so having conversations, even in the workplace, right? Addressing period poverty in the workplace is something that's fairly new, but I think all women can empathize with it. And so getting to know people, donating to the cause, starting your own menstrual equity movement. And if you're a small business, you can put pads and tampons in your restrooms. There are so many things that you can do. I would start by researching the issue online, but if you wanted to reach out to me, you can just reach out to me on my social media and I'll get back with you and we can work together. That's how I've been able to collaborate with some of these organizations, has been through social media and just connecting through these different avenues and by talking with people. I do a lot of face-to-face, I do a lot of presentations because I feel that that's the best way to connect with individuals. So just connect with me on social media, or we can connect in person, and we can work together in building a project to address it in their area.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.